Like anything else in life, giftedness has a whole side of cons that goes with the benefits of being gifted. Now, this giant list is something that most people don't know about, and actually, even within the gifted community, we don't talk about it that much. So, I want to make sure that you all out there, for yourselves and for your kids, know about this big list of possible issues that can pop up with the gifted experience. Hi guys, I'm Kathleen Lewis. I am gifted, and I found that out just a little over a year ago on the tail end of figuring out my son is gifted as well. So I have been on a journey of growth and discovery this last year, dealing with a whole bunch of honestly really dark things that I've been thinking and experiencing in my life, and I had no idea why, or that it was fairly common amongst gifted people. So my hope is that I can save you guys heartache and headache dealing with some of these things by giving you a big list in the description of all the resources I found, podcasts, websites, books. Go there, check them out. But this is my list of things that your kids may or may not have. So before we get started, I want to make sure you know two things. If you're gifted, you do not necessarily have to have all of these struggles. It is possible that you give your child the right environment, the right support they need. So, someone to talk through these issues with them and guide them through some of these harder thoughts that they're having, and also an awareness of what they need and how they need to grow in order to become a fully functioning, healthy adult. So it's possible that they can skip most of these issues. And it's possible that you, as an individual, if you're gifted, have experienced most, if not all of these. So it's entirely an individual experience. The second thing I wanted to cover here is my viewpoint of giftedness. I go with the giant crowd in the gifted community that talk about giftedness being an experience and not just an IQ score. So for the viewpoint I'm coming from, I'm just going to list off a few characteristics that are fairly common. If you're gifted, you don't have to have these, but these are fairly common characteristics. An urgent and insatiable curiosity, quick to learn, the ability to immerse deeply for a long time into a topic or a subject, good memory, a deep sense of integrity and justice, the possibility of being highly sensitive in various sensory experiences, touch, a heightened sense of sound, taste, etc. Really intense emotions, a very expansive imagination, an acute awareness of what is excellent work, and a high self-awareness. So mix up all of these characteristics, put them into an individual in various combinations, and you get these problems. First off, perfectionism. This is probably the bane of the experiences of most of the gifted out there. And actually, this is what drove Da Vinci particularly. We get so perfectionistic that we abandon good things or high quality things thinking they're rubbish, when other people say, no, that's good, you should share it. And Da Vinci did this a lot with his artwork and his projects, and that's actually why he spent 14 years working on the Mona Lisa, because he was never satisfied with it. It was never good enough. So perfectionism is something you have to be aware of, especially in your kids' schoolwork in particular. Related to that is low self-worth. So because we are so critical of ourselves, we don't think we're really good at many things. It's possible that some of us really do have an inflated ego because of those around us telling us constantly that we're so good at something. It's possible. But from what I've read, most of us in the gifted experience feel like we're imposters, that we're not really good at things because we're so self-critical. Now, there's a very good video from the Colorado Association of the Gifted and Talented. There's a really good teachers community out there for the gifted, and they put out excellent videos on YouTube. So I'm going to link that down below. It's a video on perfectionism and this feeling of I'm no good at anything. So check that out if this is something that's particularly troublesome for your kids or you. Another issue is the feeling of being broken or alien. This is something that, as an unidentified gifted person, I struggled with all throughout my 20s. and late teens. I felt broken because I recognized that I did not function the way everyone else in society does. And as I said, many gifted people describe their feeling of otherness as being alien. So we are very aware that we function differently than others. Another realm of issues is in social interactions. Now, I'm not talking about being antisocial or the inability to socialize. It's just that the way our brain thinks, it's difficult to translate our FM radio waves to the AM waves that everyone else's brain is on. This problem is because we skip think or meta think. And that is essentially we are taking leaps or teleporting to conclusions, whereas most people need step-by-step process down a path until they reach the conclusion. So, yeah, most people can't keep up with the gifted brains, and that causes issues with conversations. There's also an issue with the level of stimulus the gifted brain needs as opposed to a typical brain. So all brains shut down if they don't get enough stimulus. The neuroscience supports that. But whereas the typical brain is down here with the threshold of stimulus level, the gifted brain is in ranges up here. So that again plays into enough stimulus in the conversation and social interaction, whether or not it's appropriate to keep the gifted brain engaged. So all of these together means that many conversations are too slow for us, like we're interrupting people because we already have figured out what they're saying, and so we want to respond. Or people don't understand what we're saying because they need 10 steps to get there, and we think, well, it should just take you one. So until we're aware of that, and that was actually the major problem in my marriage, all the fights were because I was not aware of all of the missing pieces I was not giving my husband in some of these discussions we were having. And I'm like, I don't understand why you're not understanding what I'm saying. I'm laying it out perfectly for you. But yeah, once I figured that out, it was easier for me to have conversations with him and everyone else. Another way this manifests is sometimes the gifted brain just instinctively knows an answer. And then you kind of have to backtrack to understand what your subconscious part already figured out. So someone may be giving you their idea, and as they finish their final word explaining it, you immediately say, oh no, that's not going to work. And they're like, you didn't even consider my opinion or my ideas. How can you just dismiss it like that? But the reality is, while they're talking and taking their slow time of explaining everything, we've evaluated several things, but there's also like this instinct that it's like a gut feeling, you know it's not going to work, and then you can finally, again, trace your way back to explaining all of the reasons why your first instinct was no. Because of our need for stimulus, small talk, which is the majority of conversations out there, really, really bores us. Like, it's so tedious. So we do not like to engage in it, or we disengage from it as fast as possible. We skip it if possible in conversations. We can be trained to, like autistic people do, have social scripts that we do just to maintain friendly relationships with people around us. But if we're truly unmasked with our social interactions, our small talk will be like zilch or maybe 5 seconds of, hey, good to see you today. So in order to keep up with the stimulus we need in our brains, sometimes we retreat to do some internal analysis, some creative space work, while also keeping a small amount of brain space to listen to the conversation. Sometimes that can run away with us and it feels like we're not paying attention. But if you ask the kid who was daydreaming in class or the person who's not paying attention to the conversation, you immediately realize they were. It's just, it was taking up, the conversation was taking up such a small portion of the brain that they had so much space for anything else. And as I referenced, all of these social problems causes us, the gifted, to mask. In order to function and interact with most people around us, we learn scripts, we learn what we can and cannot say. So most people never see our true selves, which results in the next issue, loneliness. Not only are there social issues that we're constantly adjusting our FM radio waves down to AM radio waves, not only are we aware of how different we are, we're aliens in this world, our overwhelming intensity of experience, of expression, frequently drives others away from us, which is yet another reason we mask. So, yes, there's a loneliness of being just not understood, not seeing others out there in the world, because statistically we're less than 5% of the world's population. But this loneliness also drives us into this feeling of like we have no friends. So we might truly have no friends, but it's more likely that we're not aware that our needs and expectations from friends are so much different than most of the people out there in the world. There are a few true gems of typical people that interact with us well. My husband is a typical brain, and I love him. He has learned, even before he knew I was gifted, how to interact with me and enjoyed interacting with me. Hence, he asked me to marry him. But not everyone out there is willing to take the extra step and do that. So, yes, there is a situation where you may not have friends. Also, because our brain is different, um, it's like speaking a language that's not your native language with everyone else your entire life. And then finally, you find another gifted person and you can speak your native tongue with ease without having to translate in your head to the other language. And it's just an entirely different experience. Another issue here is deep existential awareness. Now, this could be the 5-year-old who is very concerned about the reality of death and what happens after death, and being concerned about themselves and everyone around them and needing answers to those questions. This could be the 13-year-old who is having a life crisis because they have not yet contributed anything meaningful to the world around them. They're only 13, but they feel like failures because they're not contributing to society. Or this existential awareness could come in the form of an adult, feeling like life is pointless because you are so aware of the big picture of the universe, of how insignificant you are and compared to the billions of other people out there on the planet. That your small photography business that you do enjoy does not really contribute anything to the big picture or the big experience of life. And this can be deeply, deeply troubling for the gifted mind. So I've already listed a lot of issues that the gifted person experiences, and all of that contributes to depression. Depression can be a very common and serious issue for gifted people, especially when compounded with our deep and intense emotions. And that leads me to the final issue that I'm going to mention for you guys: substance abuse issues. Yeah. So I was kind of surprised by this, but it makes sense. There was this one researcher who did a survey of 25 gifted individuals, and 24 of the 25 had or currently were dealing with substance abuse issues in their lives to dull the intense emotions and mental experience, because it is overwhelming and exhausting to constantly have to struggle with these deep and intense emotions, this intense brain that is just constantly on overdrive. So many people go to alcohol and drugs. Personally, I never have had issues with substance abuse because I found other coping mechanisms, which did come very addictive when I was having my own depression experience. So, yes, substance abuse issues or just addictive behaviors in other things. Be very aware of that and the dangers with that. So this is just a short list of many of the big issues that gifted people deal with. There are probably a lot more that I've not mentioned. If there's something you want to point out, put it down in the comments. If you relate to anything here, whether it's from your own experience or your kids, drop that down in the comments. Let everyone know that they're not alone in this experience. And it's possible to deal with these, to come to a healthy place, to learn the proper and correct way to navigate these things so that they're a non-issue in your child's life and in your life. So again, check out the list of resources in the description so that you can be informed of the various psychological needs of the gifted.